The Springboks coaches have hit out at the use of the ball in play statistic as a metric for an entertaining game, dubbing it a bikini stat. The statistic is often used to support an argument for World Rugby to speed up the game, as it measures the time the ball has been in the field of play before the next stoppage in play. The Springboks coaches have hit out at the use of the ball in play statistic as a metric for an entertaining game, has referenced the dubbing it a bikini stat, that there is too much senseless statistic is often used to support an argument for World Rugby to speed up the game, also utilized as it measures the time the ball has been in the field of play before the next stoppage in play stage or set between the Springboks and Ireland. Ball in play metric. Tonight and at World Rugby chair Brett Robinson has got to decide which game it would rather watch, that there is too much on the latest Rassie Plus podcast. While former Springboks head coach Rassie Erasmus also utilized it along with his assistant quality of the 2023 Felix Jones Rugby World Andy Cup Edwards stage match between the Springboks and Jaco Peyper on the episode titled Tonight The Shape and at some point. The world has got to decide which game it would rather watch. They discuss the impact of the on the latest Rassie Plus podcast, the pressures that Springboks head coach Rassie Erasmus discussed the stat, which former referee Peyper likened to a bikini. Felix Jones. It reveals quite a bit, Edwards, except the best part. Stick and Jaco Peyper. The group of coaches were in agreement that it is not a fair reflection of the quality of a 48-minute show. They discussed the impact of the outlawing of false information, the pressures that officials are under him. The ball it is irrelevant as he measures former referee moments that decide the outcome. It reveals quite a bit can change depending on how a team wants to play. The group of coaches maybe not as much as people think the not a fair reflection of the quality of a rugby former Munster and Ireland. Erasmus explained that it's false but for me, what makes a good with game Jones is when I come out of a stadium it is I watch irrelevant a game on as TV. He measures a game on moments what a contest that decide the outcome. That's what makes the game. Ball and play where I think of a moment depending on how a team wants to play. A charge down. Maybe not as much as people think of the contest as being the thing of wow that was the former Munster and Ireland back referees manipulating the game. But for me, what makes a good game is when I come out of a stadium or I watch a game the contest aspect goes back to what we're saying about the shape. That's what makes the game of people within where rugby. I think of a moment isn't one of the most unique things about rugby. A kick, the different types of contests within the game, the thing of wow, that was a great game. Home referees manipulating the game, live scores, strength and conditioning. Coach Edwards added. The contest aspect goes back to what we're saying about rugby, the shapes and sizes club of rugby within rugby. Forum isn't one of the most unique things about rugby. Sign up the different types of contests within the game because of those people. Springboks coaches slam bikini stat news that Jaco live scores and refs try to manipulate results in a disservice to the tables. Springboks coaches slam test rugby stat that Jaco Peyper claims refs try to manipulate, log in a disservice to the game. Sign up. Jarred right 28 Jan 2026 to 18 p.m. Springboks coaches slam bikini stat. Springboks Jaco Peyper claims refs try to manipulate and an inset of service to the game. Get Springboks coaches slam bikini stat. Subscribe that Jaco Peyper the Springboks coaches have hit out at the use of in the ball in play statistic as a metric. Jarred right 28 Jan 2026 dubbing it a bikini stat. The statistic is often used to support an argument for World Rugby to speed up the game, and an inset of Jaco as it measures the time the ball has been in the field of play before the next stoppage in play. The Springboks coaches have hit out at the use of the ball and play statistic. World Rugby chair Brett Robinson has referenced the dubbing it a bikini stat that there is too much senseless the statistic is often used to support an argument for World Rugby to speed up the game. Also utilized as it measures the time the ball has been in the field of play before the next stoppage in play stage or set between the Springboks and Ireland. Ball and play metric. Remove ads. World Rugby chair Brett Robinson has referenced if you look at the South Africa-Ireland that game, there is too much it was a different game of rugby. He said while former All Blacks head coach Ian Foster also utilized it to criticize the quality of the was in play for 27 minutes throughout the whole game stage match. It was a very stop-start game, very physical, remove ads, very combative. You saw a different spectacle. If you look at the South Africa-Ireland game, the world has got to decide which game it would rather watch. He said after the All Blacks. On the latest Rassie Plus podcast, hammering of Italy, Springboks head coach Rassie Erasmus in play for 27 minutes along with his assistant Don Human. It was a very stop-start game. Andy very Edwards, physical, very combative. Stick and Jaco you saw a different spectacle title The Shape and at some point, the world has got to decide which game it show. Rather watch. They discuss the impact of the latest Rassie Plus podcast, the pressures that Springboks head coach Rassie Erasmus discuss the stats, which former referee paper likened to a bikini. Felix Jones. It reveals quite a bit, Edwards, except the best part. Stick and Jaco Peyper. The group of coaches were in agreement that it is not a fair reflection of the quality of a 48-minute show. They discussed the impact of the outlawing of false information, the pressures with Jones officials are under him. The ball it is irrelevant as he measures a game on moments that decide the outcome. It reveals quite a bit, can change depending on how a team wants to play. The group of coaches maybe not as much as people think. It is not a fair reflection of the quality of a former Munster and Ireland Erasmus explaining that it's false. But for me, what makes a good game Jones is when I come out of a stadium or I watch a game on TV, he measures a game on moments what a contest that decide the outcome. That's what makes the game. Ball and play where I think of a moment depending on how a team wants to play. A charge down. Maybe not as much as people think of the contest as being the thing of wow that was a former Munster and Ireland back. The best example I can think of is for me what makes a good game France is when I come out of a stadium or I watch a game. It was an amazing contest. I think wow, and I don't know what the ball and play. That's what makes the game. Then, where I think of a moment, Ireland could play at a breakdown. That was also an amazing contest. I think of contest I don't know what the ball and play of wow that was a great game. Referees, the best example I can think of is the World Cup. But I do know they were when France played against us in the quarterfinal. But they were class. It was an amazing contest. They had and I don't know what the ball and play strength was for and conditioning. Coach then, Edwards you had Ireland play the New contest Zealand. Aspect that goes back to what we're saying about the shapes and sizes. I don't know what the ball and play for that was either. Isn't one of the most unique referees things about manipulating the game. The different types of contests. But I do know they were completely different types of international, but they were class. They were exciting. They had different national law advisor. Strength and conditioning said that officials were encouraged to increase the contest aspect. Goes back to what we're saying. He also referenced a video from the 2022 Rugby Premiership Rugby isn't one of the most unique things about big screen. The different types in the contests within the ball is in play for over former international referee paper. But much of that time was now Leicester and Saracens national law advisor with very little said that officials were encouraged. The ex-test official says that if referees are attempting to also referenced a video from the 2022 it is a disservice to the Rugby final, and they should rather be looking after the ball out of play in the clip. By the ball is in play for over 2.5 minutes to occur, but much of the action to resume. Leicester and Saracens trade kicks with very little action. Live scores and fixtures official says that if referees are attempting to manipulate the ball and teams, it is a disservice to the game. Club and they should rather be looking after the ball out of play metric log in by speeding up the time it takes for set pieces to occur, international action to resume. Springboks coaches slam bikini stats that Jaco live scores and refs try to manipulate results in a disservice to the tables. Springboks coaches slam test bikini rugby stat that Jaco Peyper claims refs try to manipulate log in a disservice to the game. Sign up. Jar right 28 Jan 2026 18 p.m. Springboks coaches slam bikini stat. Springboks scrum half claims refs tried to manipulate and an inset of Jaco to the game. Get Springboks coaches slam bikini stat. Subscribe that Jaco Peyper the Springboks coaches have hit out at the use of the ball and play statistic as a metric right 28 for an entertaining 26 to 18 dubbing it a bikini stat. 4. The statistic is often used to support an argument for World Rugby and an inset of Jaco Peyper, as it measures the time the ball has been in the field of play before the next stoppage. The Springboks coaches have hit out at the use of the ball and play statistic as a metric. World Rugby chair Brett Robinson has referenced the stat, dubbing it a bikini stat. That there is too much senseless. The statistic is often used to support an argument for World Rugby to speed up the game. Also utilized as it measures the time the ball has been in the field of play before the next stoppage in play stage or set between the Springboks and Ireland. Ball and play metric. Remove ads. World Rugby chair Brett If you look at the South Africa-Ireland game, it was a different game of senseless kicking, he said after the All Blacks. While former All Blacks head coach Ian Foster also utilized it, the ball was in play for 27 minutes throughout the whole Rugby World Cup. It was a very stop-start between the Springboks, very physical. Very combative. Remove ads. You saw a different spectacle. If you look at the South Africa-Ireland game, the world has got to decide game of rugby it would rather watch. Said after the All Blacks. On the latest Rassie podcast hammering of Italy, Springboks head coach Rassie Erasmus in play for 27 minutes along with his assistant Don Hume. It was a very stop-start game. Andy
very
Edwards,
physical,
very
combative.
Stick, and Jaco
You saw a
Peyper
different
on the
spectacle
episode
tonight,
titled The Shape
and at
of the
some
Game.
point, the world has got to
During the
decide which game
48-minute
it
show,
would rather watch.
they discussed the impact of the
On the
outlawing
latest
of
Rassie
Plus podcast,
the pressures that
Springboks
officials
head
are
coach
under and the
Rassie
ball in
Erasmus
play
discussed the stats,
which
along
former
with his
referee
assistants
Peyper
Don
likened to a
Human,
bikini.
Felix Jones,
It reveals quite
Andy
a bit,
Edwards,
except the best parts.
Stick, and Jaco Peyper
The group of
on the
coaches
episode
were in
titled
agreement
The Shape
that it
of
is
the
not
Game.
a fair reflection of the
During the
quality of a rugby
48-minute
match.
show,
They
discussed
discussed
the
the
impact
impact
of
of
the
its
outlawing of
false
escorts,
information,
the pressures
with
that
Jones
officials
adding
are
that
under
for him,
in the ball
it
and
is
play
irrelevant
stat,
as he
which
measures
former
a game
referee
on moments
Peyper
that
likened
decide
to a
the
bikini.
outcome. It reveals
Ball and
quite
play
a bit,
can change
except
depending
best
on
parts.
how a team wants to play.
The group of coaches
maybe not
were
as
in
much as
agreement
people
that it
think
is
the
not a
ball
fair
and play
reflection of the
change.
quality of a
The
rugby
former
match.
Munster and Ireland
Erasmus
back
explaining
explaining
that it's false
but for me,
information.
what makes a good
with
game
Jones
is when I
adding
come out
that
of a
for
stadium
him, it
or
is
I watch a game
irrelevant
on
as he
TV.
measures a
I think,
game on
wow,
moments
what a
that
contest.
decide the outcome.
That's what makes the game.
Ball and play
Or I
can
think of a
change
moment
depending
it could
on
be
how
at
a
a
breakdown,
breakdown,
a
play,
charge down,
maybe
a
not
kick.
as much as people
I
think
think
of
the
the
ball
contest
and
as
play
being the thing of
change.
wow that was
The
a
former
great
Munster
game.
and Ireland back
The best
explained.
example I can think of
But
is
for
the
me,
World
what
Cup.
makes a good
when
game
France
is when I
played
come
against
out of
us
the
in the
stadium
quarterfinal,
or I watch a game
it was
on
an
TV.
amazing
I think,
contest.
wow,
and
what
I don't
a
know what the
contest.
ball and play
That's
was
what
for
makes
that.
the game. Then,
Where I think
you
of
had
a moment,
Ireland
it could
play
be
at a
New Zealand.
breakdown.
That was
charge
also
down,
an
a
amazing
kick.
contest.
I think of
I don't know what
contest
the
as being
ball
the
and
thing
play
of
for
wow,
that
that was
either.
a great game. But I do know
The
they
best
were
example I can
different
think
types
of is
games,
the World Cup.
but they were class.
When France played
they were
against us in the
exciting.
quarterfinal.
They had different elements.
It was an amazing contest.
World Rugby,
and I don't know
going
what the
in the
ball
right
and play
direction.
was for that.
As Springboks
Then,
coaches
you had
celebrate
Ireland
tweak
play
amid
New Zealand,
England and
that
Ireland
was also
moans.
an amazing contest.
Referees
I don't know what the
manipulating
ball
game.
and play for that was either.
Strength and conditioning,
But I do
Coach
know
Edwards
they were
added.
completely different
The
types
contest
of games,
aspect
but
goes
they were
back
class.
to what we're saying
They were
about the
exciting.
shapes and
They
sizes
had different
of people
elements
within rugby. World
Isn't
Rugby,
one of the most
going
unique
in the
things
right
about
direction.
rugby,
As
the different
Springboks
types of
coaches
contests
celebrate
within
law
the
tweak
game
amid
because
England
of
and
those
Ireland
people.
moans. Remove ads. Referees manipulating
Popular
the game.
on Planet Rugby.
Strength and conditioning.
Rassie
Coach
Erasmus.
Edwards added.
Rugby was
The
boring
contest
before
aspect
World
goes
Rugby
back to
outlawed
what we're saying
against
about
the
the
spirit
shapes
of the game
and
tactic.
sizes of people within
SA
rugby.
Rugby ref
Isn't
boss
one of the most unique
got it wrong
things
so
about
many
rugby
times as
the different
stakeholders
types of
pressured
contests
officials to
within the
manipulate
games
games
because of those
and
people.
achieve certain metrics.
Remove ads.
Former international
Popular
referee
on Planet
Peyper,
Rugby,
who is now
Rassie
SA Rugby's
Erasmus,
national law advisor,
rugby was boring
said that
before
officials
World
were
Rugby
encouraged to
against
increase
the
the
spirit
ball
of the
and
game
play time.
tactic.
He
SA
also
Rugby
referenced
ref
a video
boss
from the
got it wrong
2022
so many
Premiership
times as
Rugby
stakeholders
final that
pressured
Jones
officials
put on a
to
big
manipulate
screen
games
and
in the
achieve
clip.
certain
The
metrics.
ball is in play for over
Former
2.5
international
minutes,
referee Peyper,
but much of that
who
time,
is now
Leicester
SA
and
Rugby's
Saracens
national
trade
law
kicks
advisor,
with very little
said
action.
that officials were encouraged
The
to
ex-test
increase
official
the
says
ball
that
and play
if
time.
referees are attempting to
He also
manipulate
referenced
the
a
ball
video
and play,
from the 2022
it is a disservice
Premiership
to the
Rugby
game,
final,
and they should
Jones
rather
put
be
on a
looking
big
after the
screen.
ball out of play
In the
metric.
clip, by
The
speeding
ball
up
is
the
in
time
play
it
for
takes
over
for
2.5
set
minutes to
pieces
occur,
but much
and
of
for
that
the
time
action to resume.
Leicester and Saracens
Content
trade kicks
continues
with very
below.
little action.
Remove ads.
The ex-test official
We
says
used to
that
have a
if
massive
referees
drive
are
about
attempting
ball
to
and play,
manipulate the ball
you look
and
at
play,
this, and the
it is a
ball is in
disservice
play
to the
throughout the
game.
clip, and they
But
should
there is
rather
no
be looking
action
after
and
the
no
ball out of
contest
play
because
metric.
the players
By
are
speeding
allowed
up
to
the
be in
time
front
it
of the
takes
kick.
for set pieces
They're
to
allowed to
occur,
block,
and for
he
the
said.
action to resume. So the moment you,
Content
as a
continues
referee,
below.
try to manipulate the
Remove
ball and play,
ads.
you're actually
We
doing
used to
the
have a
game
massive
disservice.
drive about ball and
You
play.
should manage the
You
ball
look
out
at
of
this,
play, and the ball
just
is in
get the
play
ball back
throughout
in
the
play.
clip. But don't
there is no
manipulate
action
that
and
because
no
the
contest
easiest
because
way
the
to get the
players
ball
are
and play
allowed to
up
be in
is to
front of the
stop
kick.
refereeing. They're allowed to block. Don't make
he
decisions
said.
at the breakdown. So
Shout,
the moment
release,
you, as a
release,
referee,
hands away
try
now,
to manipulate
okay.
the ball and
Now
play,
5 seconds
you're
are
actually
gone
doing
and
the
the
game
defense
a
is set.
disservice.
Content
You should manage the
continues
ball
below.
out of play. Remove
Just get
ads.
the ball back in play.
Now
but
the
don't
defense has
manipulate
line
that because
integrity
the
and can go
easiest
again
way to
because
get
the
the ball and
referee
play up
managed
is
to
to stop
stop refereeing.
refereeing.
That's the difference. Don't make
So many
decisions at the
times as a a referee.
Shout,
I felt the
release,
heat to
release,
increase the
hands
ball
away
in
now,
play.
okay.
Now 5
Rugby
seconds are
transfers.
gone and the
X-All
defense
Blacks
is set.
potential test switch.
Content continues
One of the
below.
world's best resigns
Remove
while
ads.
Wallaby star snubs
Now the
NRL
defense
for
has
mega
line
deal.
integrity and can
Ball
go
in play
again
on the
because
rise.
the referee managed the
Erasmus
breakdown.
chipped in to
That's the
highlight
difference.
just how much the
So
ball
many
in play
times
has
as a referee,
increased over the years.
I felt the heat to increase
referencing
the
the
ball in
1995 Rugby World
Rugby
Cup
transfers,
a point he has
X-All
made
Blacks
previously.
potential test switch.
So the
One of the
World Cup
world's
final
best
in
resigns
1995
while Wallaby
after
star
100
snubs
minutes
NRL
including
for
mega
mega
deal.
deal. I think the ball in play wasn't even 30 minutes. Erasmus
but it was
chipped
exciting
in to highlight just
Joel
how much the
Stransky's
ball in
drop
play
goal.
has
We
increased
were all
over the
glued
years.
to the game, he
Referencing
said.
the 1995
There were something
Rugby
like
World
70
Cup,
kicks and
a point
55
he has made
lineouts
or something
previously.
like that in the game. But
So
it
the
was
World
intense.
Cup final in
It was real test
1995
match
after
rugby,
100 minutes,
but since
including
then
extra.
the game has got
I
so
think the
much
ball
better.
in play
But
wasn't
then
even
people
30
started
minutes,
saying ball in play
but it was
now.
exciting.
If you measure
Joel
the ball in
Stransky's
play,
drop
go through
goal.
20 phases.
We were all glued
Some
to the
people
game,
say it's
he said.
beautiful, but then it should
There
not
was something
be measured
like
on
70
that.
kicks and 55
If a ball
lineouts
gets
or
kicked
something
out
like
on you
that in the
say,
game,
listen
but it was
here,
intense.
get it back in.
It was real test
Peyper
match
added
rugby.
that World Rugby
But since
has
then,
moved
the
to
game
address
has
the
got
ball
so
out
much
of play
better.
time.
But
Then
then
the shot
people
started
started
saying
saying
ball
ball
in
and
play
goal.
now.
Lineouts
If you
and
measure the
scrums.
ball in play,
But the
go through
latter
20
of which
phases.
is not being
Some
officiated.
people say it's beautiful.
30
but
seconds,
then it should not
that's
be
a
measured
drive
at
at
the
the
moment, but it's not applied.
If a ball gets
so
kicked
maybe
out
we
and
should
you say,
actually apply
listen
it.
here,
Have
get
you
it
seen
back
a
in.
sanction for 30 seconds
Peyper
for a
added
scrum?
that World Rugby
But the
has
law
moved
is
to
there,
address the
he
ball out
added.
of play time with
So
the
start
shot clocks
controlling
on
that,
kicks
the
at
ball
goal,
out of play, and
lineouts
say,
and scrums.
hey, get the ball
but the
back
latter
into
of
play.
which is not being
Then there will be
officiated.
more ball in play.
30
Erasmus
seconds,
replied.
that's a drive at the moment,
More
but it's
tries
not
in the
applied.
modern game. So maybe we should
Last
actually
year, the
apply it.
Springboks
Have you
scored
seen
more
a sanction
tries
for
in
an
an
international
international
season
scrum
than ever before?
But the law is
and
there,
Edwards
he
highlighted
added.
the fact that the ball
So
in play
start controlling
average has
that,
hardly
the ball
changed
out of play
from when he
and say,
joined the coaching
hey,
staff.
get the ball back into play.
He said,
Then
the
there will be
perception
more
of
ball
South
in
Africa
play.
in the
Erasmus
last 2 years
replied.
has been that we are
more
playing
tries
better
in the modern
rugby,
game.
different rugby.
Last
But
year,
last
year we
Springboks
scored
more
70
tries in an
tries.
international season
Do you think,
than
well,
ever
since
before.
I've started since
And
2020
Edwards
that our
highlighted
ball
the
in
fact
play
that the
average
ball in play
changed.
average has hardly
I know as a
changed from when
referee
he
you
joined
can
the
sometimes
coaching
feel
staff.
the pressure of all these
He said,
stakeholders saying
the
they
perception
want
of
this.
South Africa
want
in the
this.
last 2 years has been
They want
that
this,
we are
but if they
playing better
prioritize
rugby,
the contest
different
whilst
rugby.
the ball is in
But last
play,
year we
that's
scored
the
70
priority.
odd tries.
And then when the ball
Do you
is
think,
out
well,
of play,
since I've started
if we can
since
minimize
2020,
then
that
great,
our ball in
he
play
added.
average changed. You don't want people sitting
I know
in the
as a
stands for
referee
5
you can
minutes
sometimes
when no
feel the
action
pressure
is
of
happening.
all these stakeholders
I
saying
understand
they
people's
want this.
frustrations
They
when
want
it's out of
this.
play.